Hi guys, it's Debbie. Finally, it's my favourite video of the year, my top 10 favourite films of 2024. As I've done in the last 7-8 years, here comes the usual disclaimer. It's impossible to watch every single film in time for this video, especially living in Italy, in which films are released way later than other countries. Some big names I haven't seen yet are Nosferatu, The Brutalist, Baby Girl, Queer, Heretic, Wicked. That being said, I watched many other great films this year, and these are my top 10 favourite ones. And don't miss my video about the worst films of 2024 as soon as that's available on the channel, and stick right till the end of this video because I will also speak about some titles which didn't quite make it into the final list. But now, kicking off things at number 10 is a film which heavily polarized audiences. Some hated it, some loved it. If it's on this list today, you know which side I stand on, and that is Longlegs, a movie which became a meme but also terrified audiences for half the year. Longlegs is the story of an FBI agent on the hunt for a creepy serial killer who leaves cryptic coded messages. If you've been following me for a while, you know I have a soft spot for dark, gritty crime thrillers. It's my favorite genre. Think Seven, Prisoners, the Silence of the Lambs, Zodiac, Gone Girl, Memories of Murder, Mystic River, you get the idea. I've also talked on my channel quite recently about how I was struggling to find something that would genuinely scare me, and Longlegs ticks all those boxes. Also thanks to the fact that the marketing for this film was spot on. They kept the plot completely under wraps, so you have no idea where the story is going when watching the film, and of course I won't spoil it for you. The cinematography is absolutely terrifying and unsettling. Even the scenes that became memes are horrifying in their original context. They only seem ridiculous when taken out of it. Maika Monroe once again cements her status as modern scream queen, and for those who say that this film takes too much inspiration from other films, in particular The Silence of the Lambs, well, you can't really say much about the substance then, which is packed with references to countless previous horror films. But moving up the list, we have a film which unfortunately received a lot less coverage than many other titles I'm going to speak about today, and that is The Apprentice, starring Sebastian Stan as a young Donald Trump decades ago, just when he was beginning his rise to fame. The film also features Jeremy Strong as Roy Cohn, Trump's lawyer and mentor, in one of the best performances of the year. I wouldn't be surprised if awards start pouring in for Strong during the upcoming award season. As I was mentioning, this film already didn't receive much coverage, much publicity. When we went to watch it, there were, I think, like other 2 people in the room, in the cinema room with us. And in addition to that, I think a lot of people, regardless of their political stance, chose not to watch this film, perhaps misunderstanding the plot. While this film doesn't depict Donald Trump in a particularly positive light, at the same time it doesn't take a really strong political stance. It depicts him decades before he became the figure we know today, back when he was essentially a nobody, and it explores how entering certain circles, pursuing specific goals, and associating with particular people shaped him into who he is now. Most of the film revolves around the training he receives from his lawyer, who teaches him, to never back down, to always fight, to deny whatever it takes. So no matter where you stand politically, if you're looking for a masterpiece in acting, The Apprentice is worth a watch. Moving up the list, we have Challengers, a film which was definitely more popular and heavily advertised. Directed by Luca Guadagnino, it stars Zendaya, Josh O'Connor and Mike Feist as 3 tennis players, all entangled in a triangle which isn't just a threesome. It's the story of power dynamics, competition, jealousy, betrayal, ambition, desire, all unfolding over what I believe is well over a decade of their lives. The entire film feels like an intense tennis match with challenges and jabs at one another, building up to an intense, sweaty climax with one of the best thumping soundtracks of the year. I'll leave it at that. Moving up the list, we have a completely different genre of film, Memoir of a Snail, a beautiful stop-motion animated film which I didn't expect to have me in tears about apples and religious cults and snails and eating disorders and microwave repairmen. Memoir of a Snail follows Grace, a total loner misfit from childhood into adulthood, as she navigates her complicated relationships and the endless challenges life throws at her. I won't say much more to not spoil the plot for you. What I was scared of at first, and please forgive me for putting it like this, but you know what I mean, I was scared this was an attempt at a Tim Burton style emo film copycat sort of, you know what I mean. It wasn't. It was totally heartwarming, heartbreaking, a bit sad, a bit depressing and dark, but the production design was stunning. The stop motion animation is so well done. The set is so intricately detailed that at times you forget you're watching clay figures and genuinely feel for these characters as if they were real people. Next up we have Didi, a film which finally puts a pause on the endless stream of coming of age films which seem to be made by people who never came of age. I'm so tired of these new coming of age films, which by the way feel like they're straight out of the Netflix factory, in which teenagers don't look like teenagers, don't dress like them, don't act like them, don't talk like them. Didi is different. Not only it nails that experience, but it is set in 2008 when I was 15, so I recognized myself in so many of those scenes. The fashion, our obsession with filming everything on our cameras, the underground skate scene, the use of technology that was started to become more prominent, on top of course as the evergreen teenage drama. Didi is the story of a kid who's a bit insecure, wants to hang out with the cool kids, and ends up pretending to be something he's not, claiming to be a great videographer, cutting off friends he thinks aren't cool, lying about his age, and even trying to hide the fact that his family is entirely Asian, something he feels he should be ashamed of. All of this is portrayed with dialogues that actually sound like something a teenager would say, the clothes we actually wore back in the day, the settings, what we used to do, how we would hang out. But moving up the list, we have another animated film, The Wild Robot. If you like The Iron Giant and WALL-E, you'll fall in love with this film. Now, as I raw dogged my movies, I had no clue what this film was about. I just knew that everybody was saying it was one of the best films of the year, and I can confirm, I was in tears by the end of it. The story follows a robot designed to help humans who ends up stranded on an uninhabited island, and there she takes on the role of a mother, a carer for a bird who she has to teach how to swim, to fly, basically to survive. And all of this while she has to coexist with the island's animal ecosystem as a whole, while dealing with the moral questions surrounding AI, robots created to help humans but devoid of heart or love or care, only focused on completing the mission. Just watch it, trust me, you'll love it. And what a year for animation. I watched so many great animated films released this year. The 2 Watchmen movies, Flow, Look Back, Ultraman, Memoir of a Snail, and more. But honestly, I think The Wild Robot is going to win the Oscar for Best Animated Film. I doubt even Disney's Inside Out 2 can beat it. Next up is a film that, if you know me, you would have never expected to be on today's list. Probably Debbie of 1 year ago also would have believed it, and that is Dune 2. All of this premise is because, as some of you know, I had a sort of disastrous experience with the first Dune movie. I never said the first Dune movie was bad, just I watched it on my computer in bed. Definitely not the best intended experience, or at least not the way that lets you fully appreciate the production design, the cinematography, the music. Although I did get to see Hans Zimmer in concert just a week after he won the Oscar for the music in Dune, so at least I made up for that. Anyway, fast forward a couple of years, I made sure I didn't repeat the same mistake. I rewatched the first Dune film, not on my computer, and if that was good, Dune Part 2 is amazing. The cinematography is absolutely breathtaking, the scale of the world is massive, and the details and sound design are fantastic. The entire arena fight sequence with Austin Butler and in general the Harkonnen planet instantly became my favourite part of the film. I'm not a die-hard fan of Timothée Chalamet, but his character is really interesting, and at this point I can't wait for the next chapter in the story. But now we have reached the podium, the top 3. Last year on the podium we had 1001, Past Lives, and The Holdovers, so what will it be this year? At number 3 we have Conclave, all set during the big process of electing a new pope. All cardinals from all over the world are gathered together, sequestered, they are cut off from the rest of the world, and amongst all their internal dramas they have to eventually pick one of the most important figures in the whole world. Now, while this should be a peaceful process guided by faith, there is a lot of internal drama amongst the cardinals. Of course, there are personal gains, different factions, alliances, rivalries. Some want to be pope, others believe they're not the right choice. Some want to bring the church into a more modern direction, while others hold a more conservative view. There are people with dark pasts, those who point fingers. Some cardinals are popular and famous and powerful, others come from very small communities across the world, but despite all of this, they have to be together, closed away from the rest of the world, and try to come to a final decision. As you can imagine, character building and dialogue are crucial in a story like this, and the film didn't disappoint. Ray Fiennes, Stanley Tucci, Sergio Castellitto, Lucian Samati, and the rest of the cast had me either really hating them or rooting for them. And although because of these reasons the film was dialogue heavy, it didn't neglect other aspects. The cinematography, for example, was breathtaking, capturing the centuries-old ritual while juxtaposing it with modern elements like vaping and smartphones and police in riot gear. But now we're nearly at the top, with Civil War taking second place. Now, Civil War, just like Longlegs, was a very polarizing movie this year, and I have a little rant about it. Civil War is set in a not too distant future America where the president has become more like a dictator, extending beyond his two-term limit. Various states have teamed up and formed factions, and the situation from there has escalated basically to a everybody against everybody. People have formed their own armies, some people are fighting for their own personal agenda, but basically the whole country is cracked. The protagonists are a group of war photographers traveling across the country, documenting the war while heading towards Washington DC, the hotspot of the conflict where the president is, and basically along the way they encounter everyone and everything. Now, this film doesn't explicitly take a clear political stance, except for just saying that war is bad, and a lot of people didn't like that about this film. The film shows whatever side you're on, war doesn't work out for anybody, and on the contrary prefers to focus on these war photographers who basically risk their lives trying to get these really up close, in the hotspot of the conflict photographs for us to see, basically selling their lives for news outlets. But because it doesn't take a clear side, people said this film is spineless, that it should have been more courageous and said clearly what it thinks. But what I think people are lacking to understand is that war isn't always black and white. And in particular in this film, they are not two sides, the whole country is cracked, and Jesse Plemons' character in the movie perfectly depicts this fact. I personally loved how the film depicts the characters' journeys and what they encounter. Through the sound design and the vivid images, it powerfully highlights the horrors of war, and after watching it I realised, and there's a full standalone video on my channel about this, how we take for granted everything that just comes across on our feed, I don't know, on Twitter, between one meme and another, even if it's a really dangerously taken photo from the hotspot of a conflict. Anyway, now director Alex Garland is returning with another movie focused on war called Warfare, with a very interesting cast, so I'm looking forward to that too. But now at number one, my favourite film of the year is Anora, which I only watched last week, proving, just like last year with the holdovers, how the competition is tight until the very end. Anora is directed by Sean Baker, a filmmaker whose work I've seen nearly all of, from The Florida Project, Tangerine, Starlet, Red Rocket, and he's brilliant at depicting real life stories, often using real people instead of actors. For example, Bria Linnaeus, the protagonist of The Florida Project, wasn't an actress, she was just spotted by Baker on Instagram. And for example, Anora features women who are actually strippers in real life. So Baker really wants to tell authentic and often underrepresented stories. His films often focus on the poorer side of society, which are either ignored in films or shown in glossy, unrealistic ways, often because the people who depict them never even lived that life. Now, I'm not going to go too much along this tangent because that's for the worst films of the year video, but this is what happened when Nicola Peltz Beckham, daughter of a billionaire and wife to Brooklyn Beckham, decided to make a film about a drug-addicted sex worker, and she even cast herself in the lead role. And you can imagine how that turned out to be. Anyway, all of this is to say that Sean Baker's films always have this thick layer of authenticity, and one of the main themes he's devoted his career to is telling stories of sex workers, removing the stigma and just presenting real life narratives. And Anora is the story of a stripper who one day meets an extremely rich guy, the son of a Russian billionaire. They develop a chaotic, wild, crazy relationship that eventually leads to a much bigger situation. Just as Conclave, Anora also features some of the most memorable shots of 2024, but it really takes its time to get you to connect with these characters. It really takes its time to build the characters. It lets you simmer with them and love them and hate them, and by the end of the film, you don't want to leave these characters. You feel so deeply connected to them. whatever way. Also, something Baker is great at is making you laugh, as his characters often find themselves in the most absurd situations. But after a while, you realise that what you're laughing at isn't that funny after all, and I'm trying so hard to avoid spoilers here. Just trust me, watch Anora, and those last 20 minutes of the film, especially the final shot, will linger with you for a very long time. But with that, we have reached the end of my top 10 favourite films of 2024. There were so many other great films this year. I really liked A Different Man, starring Sebastian Stan. It really is his year, about a man who undergoes a life-changing medical procedure only to realise much more than he expected. Velma made me want to call my grandma and spend days on end with her. I also enjoyed Clint Eastwood's new film, Juror Number 2. I don't think it's just a remake of 12 Angry Men, as some have compared it. As I mentioned earlier, I liked both Watchmen movies, especially the first chapter. As a fan of Zack Snyder's live-action version of the story, I really enjoyed these animated adaptations. Island's Kneecap is a huge contender this year's Oscar for Best Foreign Film. There were quite a few good horrors this year. Smile 2 really surprised me, and Naomi Scott was excellent in it. Oddity was absolutely terrifying, and I'm sad it didn't get the publicity it deserved. For documentaries, I was in tears watching Daughters, about a father-daughter program in prison. Beetlejuice was way better than I expected. I had a blast watching it. Piano Lesson was a masterpiece in dialogue, but for now that's about it. I will see you in my other video about the worst films of 2024, in which I definitely won't be as calm and composed as I was today. And for now, I would like to hear what your favourite films of the year are, so make sure to leave a comment down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.